Tonight at 10, snowfall covers roads in the kingdom south and northwest as a polar front and low pressure system deepen. Jordan and the Kuwaiti Fund for Arab Economic Development sign a grant agreement to finance the response plan for Syrian refugees. And the UN envoy on Syria announces that talks on ending the war in the country will start on Friday and take 6 months. Good evening and welcome to the 10 o'clock news. The polar front affecting the kingdom will deepen tonight according to forecasters, with snowfall blanketing areas over 700 meters above sea level and freezing gusty winds over the coming 3 days. The Jordan Meteorological Department said snowfall will be particularly heavy in the highlands in the kingdom's south, northwest and center, including Amman and the Badia region. Here's more.
The streets of Amman are underwater as heavy downpours hit many areas and snowfall began in other elevated areas across the country. The gradual accumulation of snow and fog have sharply reduced visibility and rendered roads in many areas hazardous, while electricity blackouts were widespread due to the rising load on the grid. Some roads in the southern highlands of Shobak and Tafile and in Balqa and Ajloun were blocked by snow by the late evening hours, according to the Civil Defense Department. The Public Security Department, Gendarmerie, municipalities and other agencies had put their crews at the ready and asked the public to call their numbers when needed. People were advised to stay off the roads except in emergencies, stay home and follow safety precautions, including the proper use of heating devices. Also bracing for the rainy and snowy conditions, utility crews had been on standby. The demand on electricity had steadily soared since the low-pressure system began. Unprecedented long queues formed at bakeries and gas stations in Amman as people rushed to stock up on supplies, particularly kerosene and gas, the two staple fuels commonly used by households for heating. The head of the Energy and Mineral Sector's Regulatory Commission, Farouk Al-Hiyari, said his department had reported over 2,300 electricity breakdowns countrywide as a result of heavy downpours in the past 24 hours starting Sunday morning. Hiyari said power repair crews had dealt with over 1,300 power cuts until 8 p.m. today, while the rest were being addressed. Royal Jordanian RJ, the national carrier, meanwhile, said regular flights will continue on schedule without any change to arrivals or departures. RJ Assistant CAO and spokesman Basil Kilani stressed that the national carrier, in cooperation with the various authorities, is ready to take the appropriate measures during the exceptional weather conditions to ensure the passengers' safety and satisfaction. The Meteorology Department said the frigid conditions will persist tomorrow and through Wednesday, with snow spreading to elevations of about 700 meters above sea level. Hala Dababne for the News at 10.
Prime Minister Abdullah Ansur met Director General of the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, Abdul Wahab Al-Badr. Ansur thanked Kuwait for the support it provides to Jordan to help it address its economic hardships, noting that the Gulf Arab state had promptly paid its share of a Gulf Cooperation Council grant to Jordan. He also referred to the close cooperation between Jordan and the Kuwaiti Fund, which had provided about $600 million to finance Jordanian projects and additional contributions to help the kingdom host Syrian refugees. Al-Badr noted the level of cooperation between the Kuwait Fund and Jordan to bankroll development and service projects. He praised Jordan's management of the GCC grant. Meantime, the Ministry of Planning and International Cooperation signed a $20 million grant agreement with the Kuwaiti Fund to support the Jordan response plan for Syrian refugees. The Prime Minister also discussed with the Defense Minister of Kazakhstan, Imangeli Tasmagbitov, defense and military cooperation between the two countries. Ansur also spoke about the advancement Jordan had made in education and higher education, noting the kingdom's openness and free trade policy, which he hoped would help boost commercial exchange between the two countries. The meeting also dealt with the current situation in the region, including regional and international efforts to fight terrorism. The Kazakh minister stressed his country's partnership with Jordan, calling for closer economic ties and more joint investments. Also, the Kazakh defense minister and the king's military advisor, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mohammad Az-Zibin, discussed aspects of cooperation between the armed forces of the two countries. The two sides signed joint military cooperation agreement for training and in the exchange of military expertise. UN Syria envoy Stefan de Mistura said talks on ending the war in Syria, referred to as Geneva III, are expected to start on Friday and take 6 months. He told a news conference that invitations have still not been sent due to what he described intense disagreements. He said discussions on who should take part were ongoing in various capitals, including Washington, Moscow, Ankara, and Riyadh. The first phase of talks would last 2 to 3 weeks, with a focus on a ceasefire, stopping Daesh, and increasing humanitarian aid. He said governance, a constitutional review, and future UN-sponsored elections would also be priorities. De Mistura will begin with shuttle diplomacy between various camps, with so-called proximity talks rather than face-to-face negotiations. He will push for a country-wide real ceasefire, including all parties except the two groups designated as terrorists by the United Nations, Islamic State and Al-Nusra.
We are going to aim at proximity talks starting on the 29th and ongoing for 6 months on a staggered chronological proximity approach. That will be the way we try to make it different from the past. This is not Geneva III. This is leading to what we hope will be a Geneva success story if we are able to push it forward.
Border Guard troops killed 2 infiltrators as they attempted to breach the northern frontier with Syria. A source at the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army General Command said guards acted when a vehicle tried to cross the border at midnight, applying the rules of engagement, resulting in the destruction of the vehicle and the killing of 2 infiltrators as they tried to flee. It added that a search of the vehicle yielded 2,600 bags of hashish and over 2.25 million drug pills. Meanwhile, in their humanitarian mission, an army source said border guards received 64 Syrians who crossed in the past 24 hours seeking refuge in the kingdom. It said the latest group of refugees were from various age groups and had entered through various crossing points. The source said the refugees were transferred to refugee camps. A British parliamentary delegation headed by MP Gerald Kaufman visited the Palestinian National Council in Amman, accompanied by the Lower House's Palestine Committee. The Deputy Speaker of the Palestinian National Council, Taysir Qubba, briefed the UK team on the situation in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. He commended Jordan's support and constructive role over the years, noting its backing of the two-state solution. Sources said the visit aimed to check on the conditions of Palestinians as well as problems facing them. Paul Monahan, a member of the British delegation, said the UK appreciated Jordan's pivotal role to promote security and stability in the Middle East and push forward peacemaking efforts.
I think what we've learned is that the plight of the Palestinian people continues. We've heard that many prominent politicians and dignitaries here in Jordan are working very hard to help the Palestinian people and working very hard indeed to build relationships with the Israeli government. As a parliamentarian from Scotland and part of the UK Parliament, our role here in Jordan is to help in that process, to help highlight the situation of the Palestinian people and to point a way for the future in terms of a solution that everyone will be happy with.
Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah discussed with board members of the Queen Rania Award for Excellence in Education the results of the award's performance evaluation study for 2015. Her Majesty highlighted the importance of building on the existing cooperation between the award and the Ministry of Education. She called for holding additional meetings that aim to develop a more cohesive working mechanism between the two entities. Queen Rani Award for Excellence in Education Chairman Dean Katkhuda showcased the award's success in developing the teacher excellence criteria over the last 10 years. Ministry of Education Secretary General Muhammad Ukur said the ministry appreciates the value the award has added to the teaching process. He said the ministry looks forward to building on the crucial experience the award has accumulated over the years. Israeli jets staged 2 airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, but there were no reports of injuries. A Palestinian source said aircraft raided a military site of the Hamas military wing, the Izzeddin Qassam Brigades, near Deir Balah in central Gaza. It said 2 Israeli missiles struck in a field southwest of the town of Khan Yunis. The European Union's police agency said Daesh and other militants are very likely to mount big new operations in Europe following the attacks on Paris last year. Europol said in a report there's every reason to expect that Daesh or Daesh-inspired terrorists or another terrorist group will undertake an attack somewhere in Europe again, but particularly in France, intended to cause mass casualties amongst the civilian population. European Commissioner for Migration Dimitris Avramopoulos also said greater cooperation between countries was needed. At a news conference to mark the launch of a new European counter-terrorism center within Europol based in The Hague, its director, Rob Wainwright, said the assessment by EU national security chiefs showed that Daesh is capable of further attacks.
So-called Islamic State has a willingness and a capability to carry out further attacks in Europe. And of course, all of the national authorities across Europe are working to prevent that from happening. We know that there is a capability.
French President François Hollande said Daesh is provoking his country in the worst possible manner. He vowed to carry out strikes against the terror group. Hollande was reacting to questions about a video published yesterday by the Daesh Media Center, which showed images and lost statements of 9 of the people who took part in the Paris attacks that killed 130 people in November. Hollande told a joint news conference with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi that France will not back down and will continue to strike back at Daesh. The video showed some of the attackers in a desert location before the time of the Paris attacks. Several of them were shown beheading hostages of the ultra-hardline militant group, a tactic it has frequently used. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani arrived in Rome in his first official trip abroad since the lifting of sanctions against his country. An Italian government source said shortly before the meeting that Italian companies will sign commercial agreements with Iran worth between 15 billion and 17 billion euros during Rouhani's visit. Leading a 120-strong delegation that includes Iranian entrepreneurs as well as the oil and gas minister and other government officials. Rouhani will spend 2.5 days in the Italian capital before traveling to Paris. Over to Washington, D.C., where hundreds gathered to pelt each other with snowballs in what has become a recent post-snowstorm tradition in the U.S. Capitol. Revelers bobbed, waved and charged at each other, armed with fistfuls of snow that blanketed the U.S. Capitol over the last 2 days. More than 51 centimeters fell within the city and nearly 1 meter within the region over the weekend, according to the National Weather Service.
All right, ready?
Pull!
Oh, it's not.
Pull! Good.
Right there.
All right. Oh, yes. Yes. Listen, I'm just getting to whoever gets you. So I got your back.
Just going after whoever the camera.
I'm gonna
And emerged to face David Ferrer for a place in Australian Open last four as he cruises into quarter-finals with straight sets win against Australian Bernard Tomic. Murray produced a professional performance on Rod Laver Arena to beat Tomic 6-4, 6-4, 7-6. The world number 2 will now play 8th seed David Ferrer for a place in the semis after the Spaniards had earlier knocked out John Isner straight sets. Johanna Konta became the first British woman to reach a Grand Slam quarter-final since 1984 when she beat Russian Ekaterina Makarova 4-6, 6-4, 8-6. Her next opponent will either be Madison Keys or China's Shuai Zhan. German sportswear company Adidas is to end its 11-year sponsorship deal with the International Association of Athletics Federations, IAF, almost 4 years early. The biggest sponsor of the sports governing body decided against continuing with the contract as a direct result of the doping and corruption scandal that emerged in December last year and continues to dog athletics. Adidas considers the accusations of corruption within the organization a breach of the agreement with the IF. And finally, the weather outlook: very cold with heavy rain and hail in most areas tonight. Snowfall is also in the forecast over the hilly areas with an altitude over 800 meters above sea level. Winds will be northwesterly and gusty at times. Temperatures will dip below the freezing point tonight in Ajloon, Tafila, Shobak, Petra and Ma'an. As for tomorrow, it will remain very cold and rainy. The port city of Aqaba should expect cool conditions with partly cloudy skies, while winds will be northerly moderate to brisk and the seas calm. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close here, our top stories once again. Snowfall covers roads in the kingdom's south and northwest as polar front and low pressure system deepen. Jordan and the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development sign a grand agreement to finance the response plan for Syrian refugees. And the UN envoy on Syria announces that talks on ending the war in the country will start on Friday and take 6 months. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Walker. Thank you for watching and stay warm.